All right, welcome. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most influential texts on the planet. We're going to explore the core messages of the Quran, and here's the key part. We're drawing our understanding directly from its own verses.
So what is this text really all about, at its heart? What are those central themes that come up again and again? That's the big question we're going to tackle as we journey through its key concepts. Okay, let's dive right in.
Right from the get-go, the text tells you its own purpose. This verse doesn't just frame it as a collection of stories, but as a divine tool for guidance and for judgment. It's presented as this message, delivered through a whole line of prophets, meant to bring clarity and, justice to everyone.
So this message is really built on 4 key pillars. We'll start with the absolute foundation, the idea of one God and his messengers. Then we'll see how it's meant to be a practical guide for believers. After that, we'll explore the huge choice it presents between belief and disbelief and this whole idea of accountability. And we'll wrap it all up with its ultimate promise, the hereafter.
Okay, let's get into the first part, which is really the absolute centerpiece of the entire message. The concept of pure, unadulterated monotheism and the prophets who were sent to deliver this very message.
The verses are completely centered on Allah, who is presented as the one and only God, period. He's described as the ultimate source of, everything. The creator of it all, who is eternally living and needs nothing to sustain himself. The whole universe and everything in it, it all belongs to him. And all throughout the text, you get this picture of God's nature painted through these recurring attributes. He's described as all-knowing and all-hearing, aware of literally every secret thought and action. He's the all-powerful, supreme creator, but at the same time, also the most merciful. It's this combination of absolute, total power and immense compassion.
This whole concept of God's absolute nature is just powerfully captured in what's known as the throne verse. It's probably one of the most famous passages in the entire Quran, and it just vividly describes God's unmatched dominion over all of creation, saying his authority stretches over the heavens and the earth.
So how is this message delivered? Well, it happens through this recurring cycle. The text talks about tons of prophets, people like Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, being sent to different communities throughout history. Each one comes with the exact same core message. And in these stories, what happens next is always the same. The community splits. Some people accept it, others reject it, and that eventually leads to a final divine judgment.
So, with that theological foundation laid out, how does it actually apply to everyday life? And that brings us right to our second key theme, the Quran as a practical, hands-on guide for believers. These verses lay out principles that pretty much cover all aspects of life. Socially, they call on believers to be rock-solid upholders of justice, even when it's against their own family or themselves. Economically, they push for charity, and not just any charity, but spending from the wealth that you actually love. Personally, you have clear moral lines, like the absolute prohibition of unjust killing. And spiritually, the core of it all is submission and obedience to God and his messenger.
A really central concept here is something called taqwa. Now, it's often translated as piety or fear of God, but it's really more like a state of God consciousness, this constant awareness that guides how you act. And what's so crucial is that the text directly links this inner feeling to an outer action. It says that acting with justice is nearer to taqwa.
This verse just perfectly captures the spirit of that guidance. It suggests that true goodness isn't just about giving away your spare change, but about the sacrifice of giving something you truly cherish. It ties your actions directly to your inner sincerity, with that little reminder that God knows exactly what the intention was behind the deed.
This focus on making sincere choices, it naturally leads us to our third big theme. The Quran consistently presents a world with 2 very distinct paths, belief and disbelief, and it hammers home the idea that every single choice has a consequence.
So, the crucial point here is the super clear distinction the verses draw. Believers, they're characterized by submission, by patience, by obedience. In stark contrast, disbelievers are often described as those who just blindly follow tradition without even understanding it, who reject God's signs out of arrogance, and who associate partners with him, which is framed as the single greatest sin.
And accountability is just a massive theme. This verse is a pretty stark warning against arrogance and hypocrisy, basically saying that no one should ever feel secure from punishment. It really reinforces this idea that all your actions and intentions are seen, and a painful punishment is waiting for those who cross the line. And all of this accountability, it all comes to a head on one single inevitable day, the Day of Judgment. It's described as this moment of ultimate reckoning, when all the things that matter in this world, business deals, friendships, connections, they all become completely worthless. Each person stands before God, judged only on what they themselves did. So what happens after that final judgment? That question brings us to our fourth and final theme, the promise of the hereafter, which is described as the ultimate, final destination for all of humanity.
For believers who followed the path of guidance, the text promises paradise, and it often uses this imagery of gardens beneath which rivers flow. It's painted as this place of eternal peace and happiness, an excellent resort that's presented not as some fantasy, but as a real promise from Allah.
And in the sharpest contrast imaginable, for those who rejected the message, their payback is described as hell, or Jahannam. Their ultimate place is the fire, where they'll find a humiliating punishment. This really stark divide between the two final destinations serves as the ultimate consequence of the choices you make in life.
In this verse, it highlights a key principle. Accountability is personal. It's based on what you do, not who you are or what you wish for. The source makes it crystal clear that justice is universal. It says that anyone, no matter their background, who does evil will be paid back for it. Simple as that.
So let's bring it all together. The core message that weaves through all these verses is this: you have a universe with one all-powerful, merciful God at its center. He sends messengers with a roadmap for humanity, outlining a clear path of justice and goodness. And all of this leads to a final, inevitable day of judgment, where every single soul is held accountable for their actions and ultimate justice is finally served.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. How does a framework built on these pillars, a single divine authority, a clear moral compass, and the absolute promise of ultimate accountability, how does that shape an entire worldview, from both a person and a society? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us.